So Mo Bamba is an interesting player. One who I think some people are kind of down on because maybe they see him as this guy who can't stick with perimeter players in the NBA. And then I think there's other people who see him as a defensive anchor, right? So let's talk about Mo a little bit. A lot of mock drafts have him going 5th to the Mavericks, for what it's worth. I think the first thing you look at with Bamba, I mean, you assume he's going to be a rim protector. You assume he's going to be a good defender in the pick and roll. You assume he's going to be able to defend like the ball handler and the big guy rolling to the rim at the same time, right? You assume that athletically he's going to outperform a lot of NBA bigs in transition and stick with them in transition, and you also assume that offensively, bare minimum, he can catch alley-oops and he can catch like dump-off passes and finish those, and he can outrun a lot of bigs on offense himself, right? I think those are the givens with him. After that, it becomes a lot more interesting, and I think a lot of it has to do with, one, his strength, because he's a slim dude, right? And I think as a result of that, you're probably going to be able to post up on him from day one. And NBA teams do still have some big guys who can post up, right? So you could get Mo in the post and you could out-physical him a bit, and he could have some real problems just staying upright in that situation against, I don't know, Marc Gasol or DeMarcus Cousins or Towns and Embiid and whoever else you want to think of. I think Anthony Davis might even be able to, even though he's a lighter guy himself. But that is one thing that Mo's going to have to deal with, so he would have to get stronger, of course. The next thing when it comes to his strength is I can picture him getting physicaled on rebounds as well. You look at a guy like Thon Maker, right, where, yeah, his perimeter defense isn't bad, and he can switch a bit, but he also has such a tough time on the defensive boards that his overall value is decreased. So Mo's going to have to build up some strength there as well, because even if you're a good defender, but the other team's just grabbing offensive rebounds on you, you're getting all those points back that way, then you're going to have some problems, right? I mean, we see with a guy like Clint Capella, like he's a slim dude, but he can still grab defensive rebounds. So as a result, you know, it just allows him to be really good. So Mo's going to have to get there. And I also think his lack of strength could hurt him when it comes to setting screens. So if he ends up on the Mavericks, and he's going to be in a lot of screens with Dennis Smith, if you, one, are just a slim frame and it allows NBA defenders to get around you easier, or if you just don't have the strength to really stop them in their tracks, then that's going to hurt you as well. And you look at that compared to someone like Wendell Carter Jr., right, who is not as athletic as Bamba is, but he's a lot stronger, to where he could be a little safer of a bet, just because, like, bare minimum, the dude's going to be grabbing rebounds and he's going to be setting effective screens, you know? And then I think the next thing we can talk about with Bamba is he really going to be able to be that perimeter defender? Because I think you see it with Gobert and Capella, right? Like, Gobert is a better defender overall than Capella is. I mean, the guy has anchored the best defense in the league, or very close to it, for a couple years in a row now. And that's with him still having injuries, right? Like, his teams are so good defensively when he's playing that it makes up for when he doesn't play. But he does still have problems against the elite teams in the NBA, the ones who can go to like an all-perimeter style, right? The Rockets and the Warriors, where he just can't totally defend that far out to the three-point line. Now, Bamba seems like he's got all the athletic gifts in the world, and his wingspan is insane. So I think he's got a better chance of being like that. But I do still think there are some critics who feel like he can't totally get there. Or, like, he can kind of get there, but he can't get to the level of, let's say, Jaren Jackson Jr., right? I mean, I think that's one of Jackson's strengths among pretty much all scouts, is his ability to defend perimeter players, whereas it seems like with Bamba, he's got the potential to do it, but it's not there right now. So that is a fear that you are taking, which is why I think most draft boards have Bamba after Jaren Jackson. I guess the fear with Bamba, defensively at least, is he's a shade underneath Gobert, where he's got the physical tools, but he doesn't have all of the defensive instincts that Gobert does in terms of rim protection and all that. And then he never really figures it out in terms of defending on the perimeter, and he's like a good defensive player, but he's disappointing overall, right? Maybe instead of having a Gobert or Anthony Davis or Joel Embiid impact defensively, he has like a DeAndre Jordan one, which is still good, but it's not top of the league good, you know? And if that's the case, that is a bit of a disappointment, right? But if we can get to his offense now, I think this is a really interesting thing as well. And I already got to the screening and how he's going to have to get stronger, or at least improve his technique as a screener. But another thing to look at is his shooting, right? Because he's shown a real willingness to figure out three-pointers. I mean, it doesn't take long to go on Twitter and find videos of this guy shooting threes, and they look good, you know? They're going in consistently, and they're also, well, he's got good form. Doesn't seem like he's tiring out if he shoots too many. It doesn't seem like his legs are giving away. Now, of course, that's in shoot-around. In a game, it'll probably be a bit different. I mean, if you can make threes after you've been playing defense all game in the fourth quarter, then that would be huge. But I would assume that that's going to take a few years for him anyway. But it does seem like he may be a little farther along with that than, say, Thon Maker is. And I keep referencing Thon because I do think there's similarities between them. You know, thin frame, athletic, looked at to be this mobile defensive five who also has some three-point potential, you know? So that's just something we have to see. Now, I think his free throw shooting being at 68% is actually kind of a good sign because it's not horrible, you know? If he was like in the 40s or the 50s with his free throws, then that would signify that he's a bit farther away with his jumper, but, you know, low 70s, high 60s, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that he can make some jump shots at some point. I think it would benefit him a lot to have some post moves. Sure, he doesn't need to be a guy that you dump the ball off to all the time, but if you can hit a hook shot or two over smaller defenders who might switch on you, then I think that's big, and I actually think that's something that NBA bigs are probably going to be expected to do a lot moving forward. Even if you're not a post-up guy, just be able to post up on someone smaller than you just because everybody's switching nowadays. So if he's able to do that, and then if he could get to being a good three-point shooter, then you have yourself a quality offensive player who, sure, you're not going to run offense through him that much, but if you can roll, space the floor, and then post up on switches, and hell, maybe he could get to something of an offensive rebounder as well, then, hey, maybe he gets up to being like a 14, 15-point guy, you know? I don't really think his ball handling is anything too crazy. His passing actually has some potential, but I don't think we're going to see a big-time offensive career out of Bamba, but that's okay. So, I would think the biggest fear with him, again, is that he just can't hang around against the Warriors or the Rockets or whatever, right? Yeah, I mean, that is a risk. I was going to reference late career Tim Duncan, but even he never had to go up against teams that are so perimeter-oriented like the best teams in the NBA are right now. He's just going to have to get there, man. I think my gut feeling is he actually does figure out the perimeter stuff. I think he's going to end up being really damn good on defense, because I've seen enough evidence just on YouTube and stuff different videos that people have of him switching on to perimeter guys and being okay. Of course, these are not NBA players, but I think it's a good starting point for a guy who's, 18, 19 years old or whatever. And then I think around the rim, he's going to be like a shade underneath Joel Embiid status. Mainly because I just think physically he's not totally there, like strength-wise and all that, and that's going to be an uphill climb for him. But that's still a really good defensive player and one who can make an impact and then some in the postseason. And then offensively, he'll just do enough to figure it out. So I'm a fan of Mo Bamba. I do like Jaren Jackson more because it seems like the questions with Bamba are more sure things with Jackson. But again, he's supposed to go ahead of Bamba, so that's how it should be. So yeah, if I was picking 5th and Bamba was coming up, I'd feel good. I wouldn't feel like I hit a home run because there is still a little bit unknown there, but I'd feel pretty good nonetheless.